Hey guys, I'm ill, so I'm sorry for sniffles and coughing.
Hello. So I had this whole video filmed for today's Vlogmas, and then in trying to pre-film other Vlogmas videos, my SD card filled up. I deleted some old footage thinking, oh, that's probably, you know, Vlogmas day one, I don't need that anymore. But somehow the files got all muddled up and I deleted the footage from today's vlog and a daily vlog that I'm posting in a few days. All round, a little bit stressful, quite annoyed with myself. What I'm going to do today is take you through my 2023 spreadsheet, which sounds really boring, but I started it because I wanted to have like a tracker for what I was reading, all the books, the unread books I have on my TBR, and then I even have like a reading plan. I also have tabs for my writing goals for the year, my creative writing goals for the year, tracking my working hours, and an idea for an online store that I had, but not going to go through those because you don't need to see any of those. I thought I'd take you through my reading spreadsheet, and anyone who has the kind of similar mindset to me that loves spreadsheets and tracking things and data, I think you'll like this. This is my spreadsheet. This is my reading tracker where I have put in all the books I've read so far this year. So obviously we're starting with the title, the author, the date I started it, the date I finished it, and the number of days it took me to read. I don't know where I saw that information, but I saw it on someone else's spreadsheet or tracker or something, and I thought it was interesting. So I included it in my own tracker. If anyone knows of any like Excel equations of how it could automatically figure out how many days it took based on the start and end date, please let me know, because my Google and Excel skills aren't good enough to have figured that out. So I've been manually putting that in, but it's not exactly a big ask. Then we have the series that the book may or may not belong to. Obviously I don't fill this in for every book because standalones exist, so that's that. So series and then series number. Then I have 2 genre categories because a lot of books fall into 2 genres, so sometimes even 2 doesn't feel like enough, but I'm really excited to make like pie charts at the end of the year with how many of each genre I've read. And then I have the audience category listed separately because I hate when people list like YA as a genre. Like, no, that's not a genre, that's an age category. It doesn't tell you anything about what kind of book it is, it just tells you who the target market is. So the audience I've got there. Next I have the format, which is, as it says, it's the format of the book that I've read. So there's a lot of paperback, some audiobooks, hardbacks, ebooks. Status refers to what kind of list it comes from. So my backlist TBR books I list as backlist. This one, Enna Burning, was one that we got as a wedding gift last year, so I count that separately. This gets more confusing. Then we have audio, new buys, so it's not from my TBR list, it's one that I've bought new this year. Chosen is referring to why I read the book. So at the beginning I was using my TBR jar, so a lot of my picks came out of that. Then the wedding book club, self-explanatory. I think audible books I tend to list as want to read because they're not on my physical TBR, but they are on my want to read shelf on Storygraph. So I feel like this category still needs a bit of refining. I'm going to do this again next year, and it just needs a bit of refining because like I've got sequel down here, mood, and then as we get more towards the bottom there's new release, justifying subscription costs. That's where I brought in my monthly TBRs, where I was trying to make the most of the subscriptions that I pay for. So I'm making myself listen to more Audible books and read more Kindle Unlimited books. This is the one section that I think needs a bit of refining for when I do it again next year. Then we have pages, but it also includes some like time lengths for my audiobooks, so I think next year I'll be separating that out into 2 separate sections. And then overall the rating, which is another pie chart that I'm very much looking forward to. And then just to, because if I was watching this video I would find the colour scheme over here a bit intriguing. So this is the number of the book. So obviously Russian Roulette was the first book I read this year, but it's on row 2. So my autistic brain was like, nah, I need it to be more explicit than that. So the green refers to my reading goal for the year, which was 42 books. Then this kind of pinky purpley colour is my first stretch goal, and then I have further stretch goals assigned. And then down here, these incompleted entries are the books that I'm currently reading, though I did finish reading Wings of Ebony last night. So let's do a live update, shall we? I'll now take that and put it up there. I finished that yesterday, so that was the 8th of December, and that took me, you'll now see the very mathematical way in which I calculate how many days it takes me to read a book. 29, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 days, 10 whole days. I believe this is part of a series, but I'm not entirely sure what it's called. Oh, it's literally just called Wings of Ebony. The series is called Wings of Ebony. Number 1. How does Storygraph categorise it? Fiction, fantasy, young adult. Again, young adult is not a genre. I'm going to call it contemporary. No, I'm going to put fantasy first as the leading genre, and then contemporary. As Storygraph said, it is YA. I read it as an audiobook. The status was audio because it isn't in my TBR library. It's not a new buy. It was just in my Audible library. I chose it to justify subscription costs because it's part of my TBR. The total length of the book was 11 hours and 46 minutes. That, I've just noticed that I didn't include that there, so that's going to annoy me. And I rated it 2 stars, so maybe not the most exciting one to reference here. That is my reading tracker. And then my intention is at the end of the year I can do lots of pie charts with how many days, like the average length of time it took me to finish a book, the number of series I read versus standalones, how many of each genre I'm reading. I could probably even do comparative data on the rating versus the genre, but I'm not that good at Excel, so I don't know how to do that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to turning all of this into pie charts and data and things at the end of the year, which I'm sure I'll either make a video about here or on TikTok. So my next book related tracker is my TBR tracker. Now this has developed over the year and I've had to adapt it as more books have come into my collection. So what I started with at the beginning of the year was this list on the left, my TBR reads, and that is every book that I had in my library or have in my library that I haven't read yet. This is the longest list by far, and then at the bottom I have a different section for sequels that I've accidentally bought, and that falls into the new reads category as well, but we'll get there. So these are all books that are sequels. I need to acquire the earlier books in the series, but that is my total unread TBR as it was at the beginning of the year. Then we have the wedding library, which is all the books that we were gifted on our wedding day, and that's a much shorter list, and I've made a good dent in that this year. And then here in column C we have every new book that I've bought this year that I hadn't already read. And this list is unnecessarily long, but that goes with the giant book haul that I posted earlier in the month. A lot of these books came from that. And then all of that culminates into the books that I have read in 2023. So when I've finished a book in one of these other sections, I will copy and paste it, or no, I'll cut and paste it so it's no longer on these lists on the left, and only in this list on the right. And it gives me a vague idea of where it kind of links back to that status column of where I chose to read my books from, but I had to add some extra colours for audiobooks, ebooks, and a reread. I've not added Wings of Ebony. Again, let's do that. That was an audiobook, so I'm just going to copy that so that I've got the background colour, and then type that in by JL. Oh, and I've not added Heartstopper either. Oh, okay. That counts as a new buy. Heartstopper Volume 5. I read that on release day. This is where it potentially gets a bit complicated and I get overwhelmed by my own decisions. But once I've added it to this column, I will then edit my statistics here, which is my pride and joy. And also where it gets a bit complicated because I had to break it down to make sure the maths was right. This number doesn't change. The total number of unread books that I had on January 1st, 2023. Coming out of 2022, these were all of the unread books in my library. If I had stuck to the book buying ban like I should have, I would be comfortably under 300 on my TBR by now. But I didn't do that because the total number of unread books that I have bought in 2023 is 111, which is outrageous. And I know it's outrageous, but I just have no sense of self-control. So there's that. But then I needed to add an extra section for the total unread gifted in 2023 because my sibling gave me 2 books for my birthday and I wanted to add them in, but I didn't want to put them into the new buys section because I didn't buy those ones. So I added that as an extra section and those numbers contribute to the remaining backlog calculation, but we'll get to that. After that, we have the total backlog read in 2023. So that is the books that come from either the TBR reads section or the wedding library section, because those are the ones that I counted as my backlist unread TBR total. Total physical reads includes the new buys because I needed to separate those to make this number make sense. But again, we'll get to that. Yes, so Heartstopper was a new buy, so I needed to add that there. Heartstopper was a physical read, but then Wings of Ebony was an audio read, so that just goes into the total reads column. It doesn't affect the count for my unread TBR, so I needed to separate that out. So that takes it up to a total of 76 books read this year. No, it is 77. The bit that took the most time for me to figure out was the remaining backlog, because at first I thought it was as simple as taking the total unread, adding the unread bought, and taking away the backlog read, but then that didn't allow for any of the new buys that I then read straight away. So anything from this column that I moved into this column still affected my unread TBR. So I had to separate that out, and then obviously the total read includes audiobooks, which doesn't necessarily refer to any of these columns, so it wouldn't impact the TBR number at all. And with all of that, here we have the maths, the automatic maths. Then the only other things to mention on this page are, here I have a key of what all of these colours refer to, and then I also added a DNFing/donating list because I read Twisted Love and I absolutely hated it, but I'd already bought Twisted Games, but I wasn't going to read it just for the sake of it. So I wanted to remove it from, because I only bought it this year, I wanted to remove it from this list, but also acknowledge that it was still there. And then over here, as a kind of aside, here is a list of every physical book I've bought in 2023, including ones that I'd already read. So there's some books that I read on Audible that I wanted to get a physical version of. So you can see the difference from the unread and the Total War isn't that different, but I've bought 14 books this year that I had already read, which includes 2 copies of the entire Kiss Quotient series by Helen Huang. But another funky thing that I've put over here is, amongst the Total War, I've put the ones that I read in bold, and then also got the total read new buys over here. But again, we need to add Heartstopper. Have I done that? No. So Heartstopper Volume 5 by Alice Oseman. Oh, I can highlight it because I read it straight away. So that takes it up to 127, and I read it straight away. And there I have the percentage of the new books that I've bought this year that I have read. Solid 27% is more than a quarter, and not the worst statistically, but it also means that I have prioritised reading a quarter of the new books I bought instead of my old TBR. So this is definitely a lesson I'm going to be learning from in 2024. At least it is now. And then when I set foot in a Waterstones, it's going to absolutely ruin it. And then the last tab was something that I created when I started making TBRs, just because I find information in my head to be quite overwhelming and I find it much easier to comprehend when it's visually in front of me. I don't know if it looks complicated or messy, but it makes sense to me. So up here we have the books from my physical TBR, which are my priority at the moment. These are the next Kindle Unlimited reads that I really want to prioritise. Ones in green are ones that I've actually finished. And then these are my 2 Audible priorities related to my TBR. And I've just finished Wings of Ebony, so I've just made that the wrong colour apparently. And then I have a section here for if I know what I want to spend my next Audible credit on, I will write that there. Currently I don't have any plans for my December credit. So here is where I plan my monthly TBR. Sometimes I get ideas for what I want to do for the next month, so I have a section here where I can write that down and get it out of my head, because I really worry that if I try and leave it in my head I will forget about it, and that has happened more than once. So that's why that is there. But then we have my actual monthly TBR here, all the different sections and categories. Here I've got my 2024 ones set up down here. When I made my 23 and 2023 list, I really didn't comply with it, so I decided that in 2024, with 24 being a multiple of 12, making it very easy to make it a monthly goal, I want to read 2 of my 24 list each month, which should make it quite achievable. But including that in my already long TBR category takes me up to 10 books a month, which I don't read that much. So whether it actually happens is a different thing entirely. Let's go down here first. So this is literally just a note to self. I had an idea when I was thinking about my 20 and 2024 that in 2026 I should call it the alphabet year and when I make my list of 26 books to read in 2026, I should do it in an alphabet format, so I have one starting with each letter of the alphabet. And I know that's really far away, but it's just a random idea I had, and if I don't write it down I won't remember it, so I've just popped it there. And then just down here is more like a note to self. I made a 10 before the end list because it was a trend that was going around on TikTok and I wanted to hop on it. Realistically, I'm not going to have time to read all of these, but I wanted to remind myself what they were. Then you've probably already read the titles at this point, but I also wanted to have somewhere that has all of my Kindle books listed, because sometimes I find looking at them on my Kindle or on the Kindle app just isn't enough for my brain. Oh, it's Kindle and Audible. So this is all of the books I have in my Audible library at the moment, though I can delete that now, and I've listened to that, so that one can go. Yeah, that's everything I've got on there so far. These are some Christmas books that I got on Stuff Your Kindle Day earlier this year, so I wanted to keep them in a separate list so that I knew I would remember to come back to them at Christmas. At this point I've already got 8 physical Christmas reads that I'm not going to get to, so they might sit on my Kindle till next year, but they were free, so not much of a loss. Then I did go through and all of my TBR list, where are we? On this one. All of this list and all of this list, I went through to see whether any of them were on Kindle Unlimited, and this is the list of the ones that are. So when it comes to planning what books I'm going to read for my KU section of my TBR next year, I'm going to use this list so that I can get through my TBR quicker, because I find spreading it over formats is the most efficient way for me to do that. Then we have the books that I have on my Kindle that I'd got through Prime Reading. I don't know why I've separated them out. I suppose because I technically don't own them. Then these are some books that are in my KU library that I already have downloaded, because you can only download I think 12 books from KU at a time. So these are the ones that I currently have on my Kindle, and the ones that I should probably prioritise after these. But then I also wanted to make a note of other KU books that I really want to read that are available on there. And then this last list is just everything that I actually have on my Kindle, whether it's, I think these were ones that my mum bought years and years ago, and then there's a bunch of There's a really random selection of books. A bunch of them I got from Stuff Your Kindle Day. Some of them are the ones my husband has read because we share an Amazon account. So yeah, there's a really random list of books that I have on my Kindle here. I've been talking for too long, so my camera cut off, so I should really wrap this up. But that is my spreadsheet. I've conveniently got to the end anyway. So that's my spreadsheet. It's quite extensive and probably unnecessary because a lot of this data is available to track in Storygraph, or I have an app called Bookshelf where I track, well, I have a list of all of my physical TBR. But this just, I find this really satisfying, and I don't know why, but having it listed in multiple places just makes sense in my brain. So I'm going to do it.
Thanks for watching Vlogmas Day 11. I've made 11 videos, that's really exciting.
I hope this was insightful and interesting and not completely boring, because it's going to be quite long at this rate. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow for another Vlogmas video. Bye!